Welcome to Sorting Through Life with Colleen Waterston. I am Colleen Waterston, the owner of Space by Space Organizing here in the Twin Cities. And today I am so excited to have my guest, Greg DeMarco of Choice Connections, here to share with you the experience and the information around senior living and that time in your life where you go from where you've been for a long time to an unknown where you are kind of gonna choose to make life easier on the other side of it. Greg, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation.
So Sorting Through Life is really my platform to share with people around different topics that come up around home organizing. And I really see two different types of clients with the home organizing: people who are staying in their house for a very long time, or at least for the indefinite future, and they want just a better system with their stuff. But then the organizing clients are really help me make sense of my stuff during a move, during a downsize, during maybe a relationship transition and needing to, move their things to a new home, and being able to come in and support people through the stuff to that next phase of life. And with that, there's a lot of senior downsizing. That's kind of the time in life when that happens, where people say, the kids are gone, we don't need this big house. And maybe you hang on to the big house for a while, but then there comes a time when it's like, we need to have a single level living. I don't want stairs anymore. I want to be prepared. And so that senior downsizing is a whole industry within itself, within the home organizing world and the moving world. But recently, so last week, we had my dear friend Mary and her daughter Anne, who just went through a senior downsize. Mary's 88 and had been very happily living on her own in a home, a townhouse with stairs. And it finally came time to do that move. And I got connected with Mary's family through the move. And being connected with Mary's family, they were like, you got to meet Greg DeMarco, because he helps people do this. He helps people make sense of the decision and figure out what's the best next place for people with the idea that you don't know what the future holds, and aging brings all sorts of fun things into people's lives. And so I was able to go to a presentation that you made on this topic, and I was in a room full of people. I think I was the youngest.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
By maybe a few decades. But it was a room full of people who are considering what's to come for them and what are the options out there. And I loved hearing you present on this. And I think if anybody has the opportunity, if you're out there and doing more of these presentations, definitely go. But today I'm having you on, and I'm really excited to be able to have a conversation that kind of demystifies what goes into that process and the choice connections, what goes into the choices available for people when they're thinking, what's next? And I think it's a time that can feel uncomfortable to face. It's not necessarily the most exciting to think, okay, let me get into a place that if I have, heaven forbid, need memory care, I could move down the hall instead of have to do this all over again. But I just loved how humanizing you made this in your presentation. And so today we're kind of break that down here on the air. But so tell me about Choice Connections, about yourself, and what brought you into this industry to help people make this transition.
Well, I'll pass on what brought me into it. That's a long story. But what Choice Connections is an independent advisory group that walks with families through this search process for the right assisted living or memory care. And by independent, I mean we are not in any way affiliated with any senior living owned by, managed by. So we are, while we're partial to them because they do great work, we're not partial to them in anyone in particular. Rather, we're always partial to what our clients' needs and wants are, and then from there figuring out what the right fit is amongst the forest of choices out in the marketplace. So we do that by way of a consultation on the front end. And then from that, we were able to, knowing the market as we do, because we're in it every week, narrow down the most appropriate set of choices for them. And we save people just an enormous amount of time and aggravation with that learning curve, because this is not something people tend to know a lot about. Like I say, it's not like buying a car. We've all done it 6 or 10 times. This is something that you tend to not know too much about until you need it. And then sometimes you need it and it's short term and it can be pretty stressful. So we live in it every day. And so we can help kind of turn down that overwhelm. That's the most common word we hear. And just let people know we got you. We know how to go through this. And hundreds of people do it every year. And you don't understand. You may not believe it's doable, but it is. We know how to help you navigate all that. So
who's usually making the first call to you? The person who is going to be moving or the child? Like last week we had Mary and Anne, and it was very clear that Anne is among siblings and, Mary's children who had done a lot of legwork before they presented the option to Mary. So within that, do you find, who's reaching out first?
Yeah, typically there's one adult child in the family that is kind of, is the person that runs point through the. So that's probably the most typical scenario. Kind of breaks into 3 categories. There's those folks who are the planners and they're looking out ahead years in advance, like where you and I met at a faith community gathering or a senior center gathering. Then there's those folks that are, just about at the right time. It's probably a year or so away, and they're folks that are rather intentional and they've seen it coming, and now it's time to do it. And then the last third are those folks that, for a variety of reasons, haven't done any planning, and now some life event, typically a medical event, has happened, and it kind of forces the issue, and it's no longer safe to stay at home anymore by themselves. And that's where, for the families, it gets emotional, gets stressful, and that's probably where we're most valuable in a way that we understand what that path is, and we can guide them through it. And so
they say the worst time to figure this out is after the fall. When it's really like you're dealing with the medical needs that are new, and now we can't keep you there. And I was with a friend who had a fall in her 80s, never went back to her house, and by the time she really was settled in at one of Presbyterian Homes locations, the house was sold, the stuff was gone. And it's like, if things had been done in advance of that fall, she could have had a lot more ownership and agency over what happened to her stuff and what happened, how this transitioned. But it was like, now we're forced into it. So what I really want, and we'll take a quick break, but what I want to do when we come back is, what I loved about the presentation that you made was really helping people understand the scope of what's available to them.
Sure.
From the aging in place to some of these communities that are just quite dreamy places to find yourself at, the last decades of your life.
Cruise ships without the water.
Cruise ships without the water. I mean, we live in Minnesota. You don't need the cruise ship. You just can live on a lake. All right, we'll get back and dive into this. We're here sorting through life with Colleen Waterston on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota. Welcome back to Sorting Through Life with Colleen Waterston, and today, Greg DeMarco of Choice Connections. So, Greg, you are the senior living in Minnesota expert, and I kind of want to walk through as if my parents recently, a handful of years ago, moved to a condo, and honestly, like, my mom hates it, feels like she lives in a box, and my dad loves it, but it's the ability to have the elevator. It's all the different things that go into making life a little more simple and thinking long term. But that's where it's like, some people are going to love certain things. Some people are going to hate certain things. Some people are going to want the condo. Some people just want a rambler home, but let's say I'm a child who's interested. I'm a person who's wondering what's out there for me. Tell me from the perspective of reaching out to you guys. Like I'm ready. I'm ready
Mhm.
to start the conversation. I go to you guys' website, choiceconnections.com,
ChoiceConnectionsMN.com.
mn.com, and I find you and I say, "Help me out." What happens?
Okay, so when we first get an inquiry, we reach out as immediately as we possibly can. The nature of that is sometimes we're dealing with folks that are in an emergency situation, and so that prompt response can be very important in that moment. So we always try to be very quick in that regard. But we reach out preferably by phone and email to uh, connect, begin to find out a little bit about what's going on. Is this an urgent situation? Is this a planning thing? That sort of thing. And then we will schedule our initial consultation, which is typically about an hour long conversation where we go through a consultation form that we have several pages of gathering, medical information, some basic financial information, demographic information, understand what their support network is, who's who in that regard, and where they're located. That's the geography is always an important piece. And so from that, we will uh, rather quickly be able to kind of put together the most appropriate short list of uh, the, the most appropriate list of senior living communities. That's generally the work we're involved in, is, helping people find these continuum of care communities. And so we will put that list together, and then at the client's convenience, we will schedule tours for them to see those places. We will attend most, if not all, of those tours with them to be their extra eyes and ears, answer questions, help them ask the right questions, and just generally educate along the way. From that, then generally what happens is, so our work is to only put in front of them what choices will work,
Mhm.
any one of which can or will. It's just leaving them simply with the task of which one feels right.
Mhm.
So we kind of marshal them through that learning curve. They don't have to know all that. We'll tell them what they need to know. And then they can just decide which one. It's kind of the Goldilocks thing, to figure out which one feels right.
You said something during your presentation about websites, being websites were good for addresses, or that it's like everyone's going to put their best foot forward on a website and show you the best. It's like you really know what's going on behind the scenes so that you can help people quickly say, yeah, that this is not right for you because
Yeah.
this or that, and that process of elimination must be the first relief, just to be like, I'm not making the wrong decision by ruling out this place,
Right.
and
Yeah.
being able to say,
Because it doesn't make sense for you for these two reasons. So
right.
it's not even in consideration.
And
Yeah.
when you're going to this is not something people probably have too much time. They've probably not spent much time on this before they
Yep.
call you.
Yep.
So it's not like something you're an expert in unless, you've visited a lot of friends in different places.
Well, yeah, and in some cases, I mean, they're everywhere, right? So people see them and they will look at stuff and not really understand how the marketplace works. And um, we can look at it and realize that's not even doesn't even need to be on the list for these two reasons. They don't know that yet, but that's where we come in. We'll save you a lot of that kind of time and
Right.
aggravation.
And when you think of time is money and energy, and, with me, I'm helping people organize through their stuff. And I often say, like, don't make every interaction with your kids be about sorting through your stuff. Like, the joy of hiring somebody is that, you know, this can get worked on. And then when you get together with mom, you can just go to dinner and get together. It's like, I imagine you're giving people so many more dinners with mom where you can just talk about life rather than have this be the subject of conversation, because they're able to know that they have a trusted partner. They're able to say, like, well, Greg said this for that. That guidance
Mhm.
minimizes a lot of hours on their own
Yeah. Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
wrangle their head around this.
Yeah, we save them a lot of time. We educate them on how the marketplace works and what matters and what doesn't. Sometimes we get the question, "Hey, what's the best senior living out there?" And I always say that's like asking the question, "What's the best college?"
Right.
There isn't one. It's what fits for the person. And so that's where we come in. We can help understand what the needs and wants are and how that lines up with the communities out there. So
That's so true. Like I went to DePaul in Chicago for undergrad and I was an RA the second year and it's like you're with a lot of kids, some love it, some don't. And it's like if you don't want to be in school in a big city, this isn't for you. If
yep,
you want a
yep,
college town, so it's like, with the condo life, like there's a lot of things my mom likes, but she doesn't like that when the water gets shut off in someone's unit, it's shut off in hers, after going from being in her own
mhm,
space for so long
mhm,
to never being inconvenienced by somebody else. And that doesn't bug my dad so much. He's on the board,
mhm,
he loves learning about whose water is getting shut off and when. So people have different interests and different privacy levels, different,
mhm.
different views they want to look at. Maybe they want to be walkable to places, maybe not. So
Yep.
during your presentation, you kind of talked about this the you can stay in your home and you
Yeah.
brought up different resources that are out there that I didn't even know about that can help facilitate that.
Yeah.
Then to the other side of this is you're going to a place
Nursing
that
home. Yeah.
yes. So
Yeah. So
give us that higher level.
yeah, as I was saying, the work that we particularly do is around in that middle lane of assisted living and memory care. But there's lots of ways to age. You can age in place in your home. That involves some, maybe making some modifications to the home to keep it safe. Better lighting, pick up the rugs, ramps to get in and out if you're in those kinds of things.
And who do you look up if you're interested in aging in place? And like, who would you say, okay, yes, they want to age in place totally. I would call this person to come in and help you make your home more
Yeah,
accessible for that.
that's becoming a niche in the builder and remodeler industry.
Mhm.
The National Association of Home Builders has actually created a certification for that. It's called CAPS. I forget what the acronym
I had
stands
an
for.
architect on recently, and we were talking about
Yeah.
that. That's
So they're making a niche, if you will, out of that and coming in and doing home audits for aging in place. And so there's a lot of opportunities there to make your home safe to stay in it if that's what you want to do.
mhm.
And then that's just the physical property. And then of course you can bring in all kinds of supports. If have somebody bring in meals, have a housekeeper come in, somebody do the snow and lawn, uh, change the furnace filters, all those kinds of things. Maybe you need some physical therapy because you're coming off a hip surgery. You can actually have PT services come into your home. So these are all the kinds of things.
You even mentioned like home health aid, that there's
Mhm.
certified nurses who will come up and set up your medicines
Yep.
for a week. There's
Yeah.
that's so great to think about, but think about,
Yeah.
figure out, okay, if I want to stay in my house, maybe I'm good for now, but who would I call if I start forgetting to take my meds?
Hmm.
Who would I call? Mary had some of her rugs like nailed down to the floor, and it's like
That's a way to do it.
or it's screwed. Yeah, it had been that way for decades, she said. But thinking of those railing installations,
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
and we're going to get into, you talk about all the costs that people need to consider
Hmm.
on these choices, but the time starting this process sooner than needed can
Hmm.
also allow you to have that cost benefit of because making some of these adjustments to your home might not be the most the
Economical.
yeah,
Yeah.
but when you start to think, okay, well, that elevator is actually a year at a senior living community, or
Hmm.
I'm not saying everyone's
Yeah.
getting elevators,
No, no,
but
that's an expensive one.
when you're looking at where the money's going,
Hmm.
it
Hmm.
allows you to start thinking, how do I want to be using my
Yeah,
resources?
exactly. So from there, you can modify the home. The next step would be move into a lighter form of ownership. So you don't have all the burdens of a single family home, and you get to single level living. So we're talking about condos, townhomes, senior cooperatives, still ownership, but on a lighter variety. They're still similar to single family home in the sense that there aren't built-in care services as a part of that equation. You can still bring stuff in on your own, home care, meals, all those sorts of things, but you're going to be doing that on your own. Um, then you can go the next step to just getting out of home ownership, any kind of ownership, and just do rental. And those are what we talk about as active senior active senior living. So the 55 plus and the 62 plus apartment developments around town. Again,
do you help people make those finds?
Well, in some cases, there's a few. We don't do a lot of that, but we do a little bit of it, but not too much. But I'm just kind of going over that whole landscape of what are all your choices for aging, for housing, and that's kind of the next step, is just complete carefree in the sense of no ownership. You just pay the rent bill and maybe a utility bill, and that's it. But if you need any services, you've got to figure that out on your own and bring it in on your own nickel. Then after that, then we get into the world that we work in, and that's the senior living communities, what we refer to as continuum of care. So that's under one roof on one campus. You have independent living apartments, you have assisted living apartments, and you have memory care apartments. And now the care services are kind of baked into that equation, and now we've entered the world of licensed operators. So this is the Department of Health, pardon me, overseeing. In August of 2021, this industry became licensed in Minnesota. So that's another element where there's oversight, and you've got all the care services you could want up to, but not crossing the line into skilled nursing. And you can start out independent, and if you want or need services, then you will bring those on, and generally that's in the same apartment. You don't even have to move. Now, if you
what does that mean? Like meals or
the
physical therapy?
Yeah, good question. So the meal piece, by the way, that is very common throughout senior living, it's all restaurant style. And it's kind of like college dining. You can have meal plans as much as you want, or as none as you want, or as little, or whatever. And then you can go a la carte, that sort of thing. The services we talk about in assisted living
they should have memberships for younger people to come and get meals from some of these places and have intergenerational hangouts. And then I could go and have nice meals.
Well, you can.
Yeah.
No, you can do that.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I should start hanging out.
So when we talk about the care services in assisted living, we're talking about what we call ADLs, or activities of daily living. So it's that help with the housekeeping. It's the help with, I'm a little unsteady. I maybe need to have somebody just in the bathroom when I'm taking a shower. I don't need help showering, but just some standby assistance, or, it's getting too hard to get my medication set up right. You can add those services all the way up until, you're wheelchair bound and you need help, two people to lift you out of that wheelchair and into bed, that kind of thing. It gets up to that level before you cross the line into skilled nursing care.
And what are those units looking like? Like, is that a 1-bedroom apartment? Is that 3-bedroom? What are the range of things that you can, because I'm working with a client who has a couple years before she's moving out of her home, but we don't know where next. And I'm finding it a little harder to kind of, do some of the downsizing. It's harder to motivate getting rid of things when you don't know what your shelf's going to look like. And then I'm working with a client who knows, and they're just waiting for that. They're on the wait list and they're just ready to go as soon as they get the call. And it's a lot easier because they've toured where they're going to be. And so, they know what the 2-bedroom looks like. They don't know which one, but they have a pretty good idea of what they're going to. So it's like, how big do some of those get?
Yeah, good question. So generally speaking, the choices are a studio or a suite studio, if you will, kind of one room.
Okay.
Then efficiency, as we used to call it. And then you've got the 1-bedrooms, and then you've got 1 bedroom and a den.
Okay.
And then you've got 2 bedrooms. And, at that point, it's like, is it a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, or a 2-bedroom, 2-bath? And then there's even a few that have 3 bedrooms, and that gets to be kind of a unicorn situation there.
Okay.
That's not most common. Most common, the most common one today, I think, is the 1-bedroom den, because this stuff is expensive, and so when you talk about square footage, the studios are probably 300 square feet, 400 square feet.
Okay.
Um,
I've lived in 383 square feet in DC. And when people would say 380, I was like 383. Like I need all my square footage. And so
yeah,
you got to be creative.
yeah. And I'm generalizing, they could be up to 450 square feet for a studio, but that's more getting into the 1 bedroom size. And then you can imagine it goes up from there. The most I've ever seen in a 3 bedroom would be 1,500 square feet. But
Okay.
again, that's getting to the unicorn
Yeah.
stage. There's very few and far between. But generally, you're looking around 750 to 900 square feet
Okay.
between a 1 bedroom and a 2 bedroom, somewhere in there.
Is there a lot of good storage in these spaces?
Good question. The storage really amounts to, most places do offer storage outside the apartment itself, but generally we're talking about a 3x4 closet for holiday decorations or the golf clubs. That's really about it.
It's just a thing that people need to know so that when they're preparing their stuff for what's to come, it is a big downsize. This is meant to bring what you need and, be able to focus on the quality of your life and the interactions.
Well, yeah, the part we always talk about when people are kind of trying to get their head around, how am I going from 3,000 feet to, 1,000 or 100? In this world of senior living, the whole campus, the whole building, the whole campus is your home.
That's a great point.
And there's a wealth of, the whole reason behind this industry was a reaction to the nursing homes of the 70s and 80s.
Okay.
Which was a clinical setting, and it's my building. Your room's 103 down the hall.
Yeah.
This world is completely the opposite of that. This entire campus and building is your home. We just work here. And so there's just a wealth, again, the cruise ship without the water. There's just a wealth of common spaces in these places. And they typically have private dining rooms that you can reserve for your own family use at zero cost, all part of rent. And the people that can get their heads around that and use the pub and the extra common spaces and really enjoy them, now you don't need as much square footage because you're doing a lot of your living in the building.
Right.
And the people that can get comfortable with that, get their mind around that, really get the most out of it.
Because you're building yourself a whole new community, a whole new social life, actually my brother-in-law's dad, he moved into a senior community a while ago. His wife passed a few years ago, unfortunately, but I mean, we were at the funeral and there were so many people from that community who came to the funeral, and they are such good friends. I mean, I get together, we do, I see him all the time at dinners at my sister's house. That man is so social. I mean, he's like, Colleen, I can't show up to everything. He's like, there's movie nights, there's game nights. Now the big thing, they've got a gal who comes in. There's happy hours. There's a gal who comes in 3 times a week to do workouts, and he's like really feeling it. He's getting stronger and he's loving these workouts. He's like, I can't do everything that they offer. You have to choose. It's so much fun. They do field trips, they go on excursions. He was telling me about a show they're going to at a Hopkins theater, a Joe Mauer inspired play. And it was like, Leo, I'm exhausted. Like you have 5 times more social life than I do.
And the socialization, that's really the magic sauce and all of this.
Yeah.
The aging in place at home is great, and it's right for folks, and nothing wrong with it if you can manage it and you don't mind dealing with all the stuff to arrange that. But that socialization piece is just hard to beat. So that's
so then I think we haven't hit the last piece of a community that has all the nursing and has the wings for if you need memory care,
well, so in the assisted living world, okay, you've got independent living, you've got assisted living and memory care. Now, we haven't crossed that line into skilled nursing. That's a whole different licensure, a whole different world. That's the nursing homes. But short of that, in the assisted living, it's generally those 3 lanes: independent, assisted, memory care. And many of these operators take that assisted living lane and they widen it out as much as possible. some more than others. So they're going as close to that line of skilled care as possible. So they might even be doing sliding scale insulin or changing a catheter, that kind of thing. That's how, and those are referred to as care suites or enhanced care, that sort of thing. So that's the whole idea, is to forestall or prevent having to ever go to a nursing home. Now, certain situations are going to require that happens, but by and large, this whole model has worked remarkably well. Because that's why it's exploded all over the country in the last 30 years. So,
yeah, it really gives people the ability to maybe think of one more move, and say, I'm going to choose a place that I can, whatever comes, I can stay, I can keep my bed, I can keep, my things around me, I can keep my friends. But now the cost, can you just, I know every place costs a different, I know maybe there's averages, but you mentioned that, there's rent, but then there's, and how people kind of get caught up on that. Oh, this is the cost.
Yeah.
But that's the rent.
Yeah. The first thing, the main thing I always point out to clients is that in this world of assisted living, there are 3 core elements. And I always say this because once they get into it and they start seeing pricing coming from these places, it can feel like a blizzard pretty quick. So
for sure.
If you just remember, there's 3 core elements: it's rent, it's care, and it's food.
Rent, care,
and
food.
Yeah. So, one of the challenges if you're doing it on your own is that all the information you'll find on your own out on the internet and that sort of thing, when you see pricing, it's generally always going to be just that rent number.
Okay.
And yet
I can afford that. Yes, that's
people
easy.
frequently misunderstand that that's not the whole picture.
Yeah.
So that's what we do a lot
of. Is it like a third, or?
Good question. No, the meal part is certainly less.
Okay.
The wild card is the care, because it depends on how much you need. Right. Fortunately, if you're planning early and you start out independent, it's a breeze, relatively speaking. You're still cooking, you're buying your own groceries, that sort of thing. And then if you get to the point you want or need the assistance, then you can start layering that in. And the meal plans are relatively affordable, really. When you think people look at, $12 to $15 a meal pricing, just as a general ballpark.
I'm start hitting these places up.
Yeah,
good company, good food.
Yeah, and I always tell clients, hey, no tax or tips, on those prices either. So it's really pretty affordable. As one 89-year-old lady said to me on a bus tour, she said, "You know what? I've cooked all my life. I'm all cooked out. I'm ready to be served."
I haven't cooked my life, and I'm cooked out. This is great for people. Yeah.
So rent, care, and food, and the care is the wild card. So just to put that in some perspective, let's just say a 1-bedroom, and you go in independent, you're probably looking at $2,500 a month for rent. Those numbers seem high relative to just straight market rate rent.
But that's not. I don't have to pay cable. I don't have to pay utility. That is my one cost, is my rent cost.
There's a lot of goodies in that number.
Okay.
Yeah, you've got the rent, you've got common Wi-Fi in the building, all your utilities, all the activities, all the transportation.
Yeah. That's like a gym membership. That's
some may have some fitness center stuff. Yeah. So that's if you were in that 2,500 range on rent, and then let's say you came to you had a fall, let's say, and you need to do some assistance after a hospitalization. Hopefully you're low end, but let's say you're mid-level. If you were mid-level care, you could easily have $2,500 just on that piece alone.
Okay.
So now, relatively speaking, the meal plan is less. And that's a funky number in this pricing game since licensure, because the food cost is supposed to be separated from rent by the legislation, the regulation, and yet it doesn't always get broken out that way. So it's a little, because some places will say you get all 3 meals included for $300 a month. Well, that doesn't make sense. You can't buy groceries for that.
Okay.
Other places actually charge what it is, and it's $1,500 a month for 3 meals.
Okay.
So it can be kind of anywhere in there, but rent, care, and food.
Is that all then? You get one bill?
Yep, you get one bill, and in the care column, there's generally 2 kinds of ways of pricing it. It's either a care level,
Okay.
that's reflective of how much time is involved in providing whatever the cares are that have been decided upon.
Mm-hmm.
And generally that's translated by a point system, but it amounts to staff time. And then there's those that charge the a la carte method, where, and the theory there is you're only going to pay for what you're actually using.
Mm-hmm.
But that gets to be that, you just have to keep your eye on that bill every month.
There might be a
Because,
premium on what you're using.
well, if you start using a lot, yeah, it adds up. It certainly adds up. But, in the end, it all kind of washes out because care costs what care costs. But the a la carte thing, it's just, you only pay for what you use, but you just have to really keep an eye on that bill every month.
Well, what I love about this is if I'm sitting there right now listening to this and I'm like, I got to start thinking about this. I love that you guys are there to say, I'm going to call them. Like that can be the start of thinking about it because you don't need to know everything because their choiceconnectionsmn.com and call Greg and say, here's what I got going on. Put me in your consult form.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me tell me where I should be looking. And I really just like that your expertise can explain this because, I'm learning it now and people can learn it and know what goes into that decision. But there's this service provider that can kind of hold your hand through that process in what you offer. And to me, that's the way I would want to go, just to be able to say, like, make sure I'm making the right decision because this is a huge decision.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want you to tell me a best and worst case scenario of how this goes. Like, help me understand from your perspective, seeing so many people, helping hundreds and probably thousands. Like, tell me when this has gone well and kind of contextualize it for me, like the role of the family, the role everybody plays. And then when it's like, you're really like, you feel bad about it. You're like,
Yeah.
gosh, I wish that we could have helped them sooner.
So on the harder side, we deal with a fair number of folks that have, for a variety of reasons, have not done any planning, and now some medical event has hit, and maybe they've got kids. Some are in town, some are not in town, and maybe maybe they're not all on the same page. Maybe they aren't all equally aware of what. Let's just say there's some dementia going on, and what dementia is all about and how to best handle it, and those kinds of things. So you get a lot of crosswinds and dynamics, as we like to refer to it in the family, going on. But the real crunch is coming because nothing was planned until a medical event hit. Now, if they're in a situation where they have had an event, hospitalized, maybe had a surgery, now the general routine is that from surgery, doctor writes orders, they go to transitional care, which is skilled nursing, but for rehab. And then that's expensive and Medicare pays for it, but only up until the point at which therapeutic progress plateaus. Once it plateaus, they stop paying. We generally see that to be kind of a 2 to 3 week process. And if it's a situation where there's no planning and they get to the end of that, and all the medical people who are by law required to make a safe placement recommendation, they say it's not safe for you to live at home anymore. That's when the hair goes on the end, and people are like, oh, what do we do? And how do we do this? And now they're at the mercy of what's available.
Right.
And how do I even look at, how do I do this? And I'm freaking out about my whole situation. I'm in pain. I'm exhausted. I'm sick. I can't think straight. My kids don't know what I want because we didn't talk about it. And then that's when they lose control. That's kind of one of the big questions we ask people up front. Who do you want making the choice for where you're going to live the rest of your days? Do you want to be doing it, or do you want to leave it to chance and somebody else and whatever's available afterwards? And it can be dealt with, and we deal with it, but it's not what it could be, And then in those situations, if you really want to get all the tough circumstances in one bucket, then you've got somebody who doesn't have the resources to pay for this, but maybe for a year or two. Well, now that's why we ask basic financial questions, is to understand. Very important piece of our work is to know, is there any likelihood someone could outlive their money? In which case,
Mhm.
fortunately, in Minnesota, there are a number of communities that will allow people to stay on public assistance once their money is run out. So if we can find that out ahead of time, we very intentionally limit our search to those communities that will allow them to stay should their money run out.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Huge to
But
know.
as you can imagine, that narrows the funnel a little bit,
Right.
or a lot of bit, depending on the financial situation. So those are the tough ones. I think the hardest one like that was a couple that she had a neuromuscular degenerative condition for years, and she just couldn't, get to the point of deciding it was, she needed supportive living, and kept thinking, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, and dragged out. But and yet she searched, but didn't want to do anything. And 2 years went by without a decision. And then sadly, by the time the move happened, it was because her situation had degenerated to the point where she almost needed skilled nursing. And so now a lot of the options go away because a lot of the places don't have the wherewithal for the higher cares. So that's the hard part, is to help people understand, don't paint yourself in a corner, or you're going to be in a tough spot. So that's the hard part. Not on the good side.
Let's put a pin, and we're going to come back and close this all out with a best case scenario.
Okay.
All right. Sorting Through Life with Colleen Waterston. We'll be right back with Greg DeMarco on a best case scenario for senior living. All right, we are back. This is Colleen Waterston with Sorting Through Life. And I have a home organizing business here in Minnesota, Space by Space Organizing. And this show is really meant to be an extension of the things that come up with organizing clients. And quite a bit of my clients are preparing, downsizing, thinking of where they're going to be next, and trying to clear their clutter before they go to a smaller space. And within that, there's this whole world of senior living out there. And so with this episode, I mean, if you need help going through your stuff, call me, spacebyspaceorganizing.com. Call another organizer in town, somebody that can help you to navigate your stuff. And at a presentation that I went to of yours, I actually wrote down the quote you said: of all the money you spend with these guys, being the declutterers, it'll be the most satisfying in the process.
Yeah, it is. I tell clients that a lot. And then there's the declutterers, and then those that include the moving as well, but all of that together. Because in our experience, the roadblock is to doing this, because people are like, I can't move, it's the stuff.
Yeah.
It's the stuff. And then we've seen where, when professional help gets in to manage all of that, going through it, suddenly you can see in their eyes the clouds parting, and they suddenly can see that this is doable.
I can get through this.
Yeah.
You said also it's somewhere between Guardian Angels and General Patton.
Yeah, I was explaining to people that the people that do the senior move managing and the decluttering, they're compassionate and they're competent, and it's not just hire and movers. This is a bona fide specialty that will help you through that process, and they'll keep you moving through it, and they'll make it happen. And it's hard to do that on your own.
It's very easy to walk away from your own stuff or in the middle of your own process. But when you hire someone to start and finish something for you, they can't, so as much as I'm happy to listen to a story, and I will, knowing someone's budget, I'll remind them of the clock, but say, I'm not done until I see the end result. And so hiring somebody to have that end result in mind is important. And I think, so, we have a handful of minutes left here, and my goal with this episode is that in a lot of my episodes, I hope is that someone could send to someone to start a conversation. So like if you're listening to this and your parent is maybe in this space, or you're the person who is thinking of senior downsizing in one of these communities, you can send this to your kids to say, hey, I heard this episode and there's actually people out there who can help us navigate this conversation. Like, call me to help you navigate your stuff. But calling you to help navigate the conversation, to me, the big thing I've learned from you is that calling you doesn't mean I'm moving to a senior
No,
community
not at
tomorrow.
all. Not at all.
And especially because a lot of these might have wait lists, maybe not wait lists for, like, maybe there's one unit, but for the 2-bedroom that you
Mhm.
want,
Yeah.
for the one that you want, being on the wait list. And you mentioned too, to the people in the group, that it puts you on the call list. It gives
Mhm.
you the updates so you can start to hear
Yeah.
what's available and get that in your mindset and start to
Mhm.
visualize yourself making that next move. But now we've just got 3 minutes left. Tell me a best case scenario. Tell me
Yeah.
what you would give someone some
Yeah.
motivation.
So the best situation we can see, and this is part of our presentation when we're doing outreach, is to help people understand the value of planning early. Have these conversations. Start talking to your kids about it. Think of the people in your own life that have been through this or are going through this process, and talk to them. See what they're learning. You don't have to wait and figure it all out on your own. They've got wisdom already. Um, you may even know folks that are already living in senior living, and go find that out. Um,
Have a meal with them.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Ask to come by.
Yeah, and so understanding, and it'll help you think through what you really want, because it's not something you really think a lot about necessarily. So those kinds of conversations will help get the ball rolling, and allow your kids to understand that you're not putting your head in the sand. You're working on this, and that makes their burden feel a little lighter. And to work with someone like us is to not make any commitments whatsoever. The work that we do is not paid for by our clients. We are paid by way of a referral fee from a community if and when the client ever moves in to one.
Hmm.
And so the nature of our work is we don't always get paid, but um, we are happy to do consultations. That front end work will educate people, and if we never talk to them again, that's fine with us. But we've
Right.
helped educate them. I tell people, if I was in this industry to make money, I better move to banking or something. This is not, we're doing this because we want to help seniors. So
Well,
um,
and having a call with you, maybe you get paid a few years from now
mhm,
from that call, but that's also the nature of your
yeah,
business. So I think for people to know, don't worry that
yeah.
by
So
making a phone call,
right,
by
yeah.
putting yourself on a
Yeah,
list.
you don't owe us anything for the consultation. You'll learn a lot. And if we even go so far as to do touring, there is no obligation at all whatsoever. I always like to just refer to it as your window shopping, plain and simple. And then once you kind of get your mind around it, and you know which the one is that would be the one that you'd like to do, get on that wait list so you never miss an opportunity when an opening comes along. Because if you're not ready, that's fine with them. You don't fall off the list. They'll just keep you on there and call you the next time.
Greg, thank you so much for being here. Greg DeMarco, Choice Connections, Minnesota, choiceconnectionsmn.com. I'm Colleen Waterston, Space by Space Organizing. I think the main thing I hope you all heard today is that preparation and just acting as if you're prepared for what's to come in life so that you can give yourself the choices
Yep.
and be able to move at a pace that feels good and make decisions for yourself and your family and your parents and your loved ones in a way that really serves you as optimally as possible for many, many years to come.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Colleen.
My pleasure. We'll be back next week, sorting through life with Colleen Waterston.